I didn't even understand about the whole reaction video genre. I just was like, why do people want to watch this? But then as I started getting into it, I realised that reaction videos are just brilliant because it's so relatable. If you enjoy the song, you can watch that and enjoy a critique of the song, and I can teach the technique I wanted to teach that way. So I'm still doing what I wanted to do, teaching vocal technique, but in a much more approachable, much more accessible way.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of their episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. I'm John Santiago, your host, and each week I interview content creators about their stories, strategies, and experiences of building an online audience for video. And this week, if you can talk, you can sing. That is the belief of this week's guest. Lolli Wren, aka the Fairy Voice Mother, is a singer, songwriter, producer, and vocal coach based in London, England, and add YouTuber to the mix. She started her YouTube channel in the summer of 2020, and in just about a year's time, she's grown her audience to a little more than 40,000 subscribers. Now, Lolli has been singing since she was 11 years old and never took any formal voice lessons herself. In fact, most of what she knows about singing, she learned through experimentation. But Lolli would later go on to train contemporarily at university, earning a bachelor's of music with honors in vocal performance. And these days, she's thrilled to pass on the lessons she's learned from her experience in university, as well as through her experimentations to eager students. In this episode, we talk about a lot. We talk about her fascination with sound at an early age and how that led to her career in music, her approach to creating reaction videos for YouTube that are both entertaining and educational at the same time, and YouTube as a referral engine for her growing and thriving vocal coaching business, and so much more. There's a lot that we discuss and is jam-packed, so you don't want to miss that. But before we jump into this conversation, I want to remind everybody, if you are enjoying the episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm, as well as subscribe to our email list if you haven't already. It's the best way to stay up to date with the show, download episodes, or know when the show is being launched and fired up onto YouTube. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and toss it to my conversation with Lolli Wren, aka the Fairy Voice Mother. And we are now finally recording after some technical glitches, which we are still going through here for this particular episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. But nonetheless, we crack on and try to do our best because we have a fantastic guest on the episode today. Lolli Wren, thank you for joining me on this episode.
Oh, I wanted to make a grand entrance. I'm sorry. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great. So just to preface this, we've been having a couple issues with internet connectivity, and so there might be a couple awkward pauses here and there. We're going to try and fix it up in post-production, but nonetheless, I'm very excited to have you on the podcast, Lolli, because as I mentioned to you in my email pitching you to come on as a guest, I came across your video where you were reacting to Silk Sonic's Leave the Door Open back in, I think it was in March, right after they had just performed at the Grammys. And I was just like everyone else who has, become a fan of your YouTube channel, which is still very young. I just loved the way they were reacting to the song because you had never heard it before. And getting to exchange a couple messages with you as we were preparing for this conversation, you have a very interesting story. So we're going to talk about the content that you're making on YouTube, but at the same time, I really want to dive into just how you got to where you are today. So I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's a very gracious introduction. It's like, so again, I'm talking about me. It's weird. Thank you.
So you mentioned to me our email exchange that you haven't taken any real private lessons. Now, you are a voice coach. You are you do give singing lessons. Maybe I should actually sign up for a couple. You give me a couple pointers. Actually, I used to sing back in high school in my choir back in the day. But
were you a bass or something? Because your voice got lower as soon as you started talking about singing. You were like, yeah, I sing.
No, I'm actually a tenor. Now it goes up. Yeah, I could get it low. I don't know. Do you know Boyz II Men?
I do. Oh, I do.
Yes. Maybe I'm like a little like Nathan Morris, the guy, the one of the other lead singers who can kind of like, he can kind of traverse between being a bass and a tenor, because since, their original bass left the group, I know he does like a lot of the bass parts for them these days. So I don't know, maybe that might be my range.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you said, I could talk to you for ages just about that whole bass tenor thing, because I don't actually use those words in my teaching. It's called the FARC system, baritone, bass, tenor, soprano, and coloratura, all those things. They're very old-fashioned terms, actually, used to describe and categorize opera singers by even things such as their weight and size. So I think actually those words are not actually as relevant today, because they can limit people and think, oh, well, I'm a tenor, so I can only sing these tenor notes. But actually, you can sing all the notes, So you're whatever you want to be.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I never really thought about that. And yeah, like it's kind of like the idea of like your thoughts can become reality. And so if you kind of put yourself in a box and assume like that, I remember that when I was categorized as a tenor back in high school, that I felt like, oh, okay, that's my lane. Like I can only hang out in this range, and my voice doesn't necessarily work in the other. But it seems like, based on your expertise, that there's a way to kind of expand that or just experiment with that. So we'll definitely get into that. But let's talk about your history here. As I mentioned, never took any real private singing lessons yourself, but you have a vocal degree, and you've done your own personal experiments. Now, you got to tell me more about these personal experiments. What do they look like? How did you come up with them?
So I've really started doing these since I was about 9. So I was a very shy child. I wouldn't have dreamed of singing in front of anyone, but I've always absolutely been obsessed with voices, the sound of people's voices. And I would do impressions of all my favorite singers. So when I was little, I loved Shania Twain, Britney Spears. I love Shakira, Freddie Mercury, just all these different singers. And I would just do impressions of their voice. And I just did that because I thought it was fun and I could mimic them. I just could do it. And then as I sort of got more interested in singing and performing as I was a teenager, then I studied at university and I learned all the sort of anatomical things. I learned things about the larynx and stuff. And so I just took that to extremes. I would come home and like for hours I would practice, keep my larynx really high and seeing all the things I could do there. And then rapidly dropping it and seeing how I can transition between them. And then I started teaching people like for really cheap and kind of got them to do different things like try this, try this, try this, try this, and that works really well for them, that doesn't work well for them. And so I would just try and replicate sounds and experiment with different feelings in the throat. I would stand on my head, I would lay down, I would try singing things with my tongue out, singing things with my eyes shut, my nose scrunched up. Certain hand movements help certain things. So that's kind of what I mean by experiments. Yeah.
So tell me, wait, you tried singing while standing on your head, like an actual headstand?
Yeah, like an actual headstand. Yeah, because I was interested to see how gravity works to keep the larynx low. And if I stood on my head, if I would sing higher easier.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. Yeah. These are things that I've never actually thought of when it comes to singing, and having watched a couple of your videos, like some of the tutorials too, I'm like, oh, I never really thought about that. Like even just that, the first video that I came across, right? Like your leave the door open reaction video. I had never thought about you pointed out this very small nuance to how Bruno Mars is able to hit like particular higher notes by like stretching his neck out and like pointing out that that was something that Stevie Wonder does. And I'm like, oh yeah, that is something Stevie Wonder does. And I never really thought of it as like a vocal technique. I thought it was more like performative, right? Because you always kind of see Stevie like doing this and going back and forth with his head as he's singing, and never really thought of it as a way to kind of like enhance his vocal capability.
Yeah. And I think it looks like it's just natural and performy, because it is. A lot of people like myself that didn't have traditional kind of classical vocal lessons, their teachers are other singers that they admire and their intuition. So it just must instinctively feel good for him to do that. And now, you know, after my studies, I know anatomically why, but that isn't like, I maybe sometimes give the impression of when I analyze that that's deliberately why they're doing it, but I don't think it is. I think it's just, it feels good, and he's like, oh snap, when I do that, that feels so much better. And he does that, whether he knows why he's doing it or not. But you know, I like going into detail, but the detail is not necessary really. And you don't want to be thinking about all these anatomical things while you're actually singing. You just want to feel good. So yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about your earliest memories of music and of like your interests in sound, right? Like I think you had mentioned that you on your website somewhere you had talked about just being very like intrigued by the sound of was it your grandfather's voice?
Yeah, he had a really specific tone. It was really warm and rich, and it's something that I could never replicate, and I was always fascinated why I couldn't do that, but I could do other things. And it's just, and you know, now I know that it's to do with larynx size and vocal tract size and that kind of thing. But yeah, and I was always fascinated by all the different sounds I could hear, because when we sing a note or speak, we have overtones in our voice, and very low, rich, boomy voices have even more overtones. So I'd listen to his voice and I'd hear all different other notes in it. And I used to, when he used to read me a story, I would just be fascinated by all the notes I could hear. Even when I was little, sort of 4 or 5, I would hear that, but I didn't know what I was hearing. So,
what about other people in your family? What, like your parents, or you have siblings? Like, were you also intrigued by the sound of their voices relative to your grandfather's or to your own?
Very much so. My family is completely the most non-musical family you could ever get. Like, so I was very much like, I latched onto anything I could. And we're all from like southeast London, my family, similar kind of area to like Adele. Like we speak in this very kind of like, all right, how's it going? Like Cockney kind of accent, and all my family speak like that. And I always notice specifically when you're in a pub in this area, southeast London, there's a higher, shriller frequency in the air, because everyone speaks with twang, which is a vocal technique where you shrink the space in which your voice has to resonate. But if you go to a pub somewhere up north, where everyone's got a much lower, warmer, kind of more relaxed voice, the tone
this is
in the
north
pub,
of North London, right? Not even like a
north
different.
Oh, okay, yeah,
north
like
of England. Okay.
Bit. Well, London has so many different accents, but you notice specifically if you go to the north of England, the tone is generally more here. Whereas if you go to a pub here, it's more there. So yeah, it's just frequencies of people's voice. And me and my sister and my mum all sound quite similar when we speak. So it was just us 3 growing up. So we all kind of copied each other's voices.
And so you have, aside from singing, you also play instruments too. I mean, you have like a guitar in the background and whatnot, but like the first instrument that you played was the flute?
Yes. Yeah. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, and how did you get into the flute? How were you introduced to that instrument first?
So a completely non-musical family, and then me, who's the only one that's interested in music. So I was like, Mum, I really, really want to learn an instrument. I don't really care what it is. And we didn't have a lot of money, so it was whatever is kind of subsidized by the school kind of thing. And here are your options. You can't do guitar because it's too loud. You can't have a piano because you can't fit it in the house. So you can either do flute or like, I don't know, sort of violin or whatever. And my mum really was like trying to discourage me from doing violin, because we all know beginner's violin is not good. And then so I saw flute and I thought, no, that sounds good. And then I had this PC game where it was like Barbie, like in the has to escape the castle or whatever, and there was like this little scene in it, and she would find a flute and like play the flute to all these animals, and you actually like click the note, and I was like, cool, Barbie plays the flute, I'm going to play the flute. So it was one of very few options available, and Barbie did it, so that was why I played the flute. And then I fell in love with it.
Okay. what was it that made you, what was it in particular about the flute that was just so appealing to you at that age? Was it the sound of it, or just the technicalities of like how to play it versus like other instruments that were very interesting to you?
So initially I didn't really think anything of it. I was just willing to try anything. But then as soon as I got it, it was the first kind of real instrument I played, because I was always too nervous to sing and everything. But I loved sound. So by blowing into this tube and pressing all these different buttons, I could create all these different frequencies. By varying the pressure of my breath, I could change it. And that's really what gave me the confidence to sing, because flute is very much similar to singing. I use a flute as an example in one of my videos to explain it, because it's a tube, like the vocal tract. You provide wind and you change the shape of it, and then you get different notes. So just got obsessed with it, and it's very melodic and singy like a bird, and I love it.
Gotcha. So you mentioned there that you were a little bit, you were a little bit like nervous to perform in front of others. Why was that?
Oh, I was very, very anxious as a child. My whole life I've suffered with various sort of anxieties, depressions and that kind of thing. And I was bullied a lot because I was a classic, like chubby kid or whatever. And that kind of thing, I was just scared to do anything that would put me in any kind of like on my own, like someone looking at me doing something was just like a horrifying thought. Like I did dance classes and stuff and I'd get to blend in, but I never got on well with choirs. So if I wanted to sing, it was just me on my own. And that was very, very scary, but I wanted to do it. And it took me a while to be able to.
Gotcha. So when you would sing, you would just sing like alone in your room or like in the shower or things like that. Like, did your family even know that you had a penchant or talent for singing? Were you performing for them at all? Like in at dinner time or anything like that?
Never. I was not the kid that was like, everyone listen to me sing. Like, no, I tried to make it as quiet as possible. I would go upstairs and listen to my Destiny's Child album. I would play it on my CD player, I would pause it, write down the words and practice it quietly. My first song I can remember learning was Emotions by Destiny's Child, which was great because it's all quiet. So you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I practiced that under my breath as quietly as I could. And yeah, that went on until I was 11. And then I sang for the first time in front of people. And that's when my family first heard me sing. They didn't know I could sing.
Wow. So when you were practicing, were you just finding like stolen moments like to yourself to just go ahead and start messing around with your voice? Like how often were you just I guess the question I'm trying to ask here is like, were you using like, like how people go and turn to their phones now to like pass time, right? Like you just log onto your cell phone and just start scrolling through Instagram or whatever social media app you have. Like, were you finding, were you doing that with singing? Were you like, oh, I'm by myself, I'm just going to start like singing?
Everything. I would replicate anything, like theme tunes of programs that were on, like cartoons, voices, things when you get on the bus, the next stop is blah, blah, blah. Like I would copy everything and just try and do it with them as quietly as I could. And yeah.
Gotcha. So in terms of creativity in your family or just any other people in your life, like were there people at all who were creative? I know you mentioned that your family was not musical at all, but other kinds of creativity, maybe like filmmaking or, making videos and whatnot, or drawing or anything like that. Was there any kind of creativity that you were exposed to aside from music?
No, nothing. No, I come from a very kind of just keep your head down, go to work, come home, be a good person. And my granddad worked every day of his life as a barber. My mum does kind of secretarial, administrative jobs, and my dad was a mechanic and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think, again, it's just, I know that people have this creation inside of them, but there's just fear, isn't it, holding people back? And I think my mum does like to draw and that kind of thing, but no, I was never exposed to any kind of creativity, no.
How are you able to get over that fear, like the anxiety of performance, right? Because I know that you also you know, you played for the London Symphony Orchestra at like 12 years old, which is quite impressive, you know, and you are still very young yourself, actually, right? You're 24. And so that was not that long ago. It doesn't, I mean, it might seem like a long ago for yourself now, but like for someone like me who's in my 30s, and I just, you know, my 20 just like zoomed past by me, like 12 years ago doesn't seem that long ago. But yeah, I'm kind of wondering about just what was like the impetus for you to really like overcome some of those fears and really get over that and be able to just perform in front of people.
Yeah. So I'd never, because I performed with orchestras as a flute player, like the London Symphony Orchestra thing was as a flutist. And I did that many times, and I was never nervous about that at all because I was part of a wall of sound, and I was confident that I'd done the studies and I weren't going to mess up my part. I knew it wasn't, you know, and I was going to be fine. And so I remember it was at my school. So the first time I sang in front of anyone, there was a sort of talent show at my school, and I saw the posters for it, and I was like, oh, I really, because I've been practicing a song, like just because I always practice songs for no reason. And I just thought, I just had to do it. I cried like before, I cried after, I probably cried a bit during, but I just had to do it. And then after that, I got a really positive reaction from people that said, oh, you can sing, you know, you did really well. And I thought, oh, actually, maybe I can. And then I would try, and I would do another little local thing and like a little open mic or karaoke and then another one. So I just started really, really gradually, and I got confidence. It wasn't really compliments from other people that gave me the confidence, because I didn't necessarily think, oh, okay, well, you think I'm great, I'm definitely great. I didn't have that kind of self-esteem, but just knowing that I did it and I didn't die was enough for me to try and do it again. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Are the nerves still there for you? Like, do you feel like before you step on stage or get in front of a microphone or something in like a recording studio, is there still that little like pang of, or like knot or something in your throat or in your belly or something like that, or in your chest before you actually start singing?
It depends what I'm doing. If I'm teaching, not at all, because I'm given a service and it's not about me at all. I'm there for them. And so I have to just step up and do that and have that responsibility. So I don't get nervous to teach. I don't get nervous to record, because when I'm in a studio, I feel like I can do it again. So I'm not worried about messing up, and I can experiment with sounds. But it's when I perform live, I do get extremely nervous. Not debilitatingly so, but I get shaky legs and stuff. So I don't sing with shoes on, and that helps. So because I do a lot of kind of my teaching and my singing kind of practices are very spiritual as well. So like grounding, energy, chakras and stuff like that. And ever since I've got more into that, I can cope with the nerves, but I feel them come, definitely. Yes.
You're able to be aware of them coming on, and you're like now able to manage it rather than like letting it overcome you, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, they haven't gone, and if I let them get out of control, I'll be the same, 11-year-old. But yeah, they come, and I can handle them now, which is good.
Yeah, that's interesting. The point that you made about like singing without shoes. It's funny. Like last night, I was, I went down like the YouTube rabbit hole before I went to sleep, and I was watching this video of Shakira. She was just going. It was a video for Vogue, so she was talking about fashion and whatnot, and I watched it, and she was talking about one of her outfits. It was the outfit that she wore performing at the Super Bowl in 2020 I think it was with Jennifer Lopez. They were on stage together, and she talked about these boots that she wore. She'd had them for like 15 or 20 years, and she had mentioned in that video that she also likes to sing without. She doesn't normally like to sing in boots. Yeah. Why is that? Is that just? I'm wondering if it's just like feeling. Having your feet like to the ground keeps you more connected to the earth, so to speak. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, but
no, that's really accurate. Yeah. So there's a spiritual side of it, and then a more anatomical technique side of it. So when we sing, we must all anchor our bodies to get the most stable, strong vocal performance. When you're sitting down, you would anchor through what we call your sit bones, which are in your butt cheeks, and you can really sit heavy in those and channel your nervous energy, and also at the same time find your strength from that area of anchoring. And when you're standing up, your anchoring points are in your feet. So without shoes, you can just kind of really expand kind of the sole of the foot and feel just a greater, more genuine connection to the ground, which enables you to, again, send the nervous energy down and bring the strength up. If you're wearing heels or something like that, obviously that's then a detachment from the floor, so that makes it much more difficult. So you will likely get a more unstable vocal performance and you won't feel as comfortable in your body. If you're not comfortable in your body, your voice is your body, so it's not going to come out as well.
Yeah, I wonder, I guess the reason I bring it up too is I wonder if some of that philosophy is like applicable to like making YouTube videos or even like doing this podcast, for example. Like, are those things that content creators can like apply to like their own practice or their own creation of content? Because that's one of the things, right, when it comes to getting on YouTube or getting in front of, I mean, even for me, like, this is still very uncomfortable for me to like be in front of a camera. And especially like before we start rolling, like I still get very nervous and have like these, you know, a bit of angst before every podcast, and then you start rolling and you can't stop there. But I'm wondering if there's ways that, you know, like what you're talking about in terms of singing, to just kind of be more grounded in your chair if you're sitting down, or if you're standing up in your feet, that could probably make you feel a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera or in front of the microphone. Yeah,
it's very important. I mean, I avoid shoes where possible. Yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you haven't tried filming or singing or any of these creative endeavors without shoes, I would definitely recommend it. There's just something about feeling things with the soles of your feet. They're very sensitive, and you can kind of scrunch your toes and yeah, it allows you to kind of slow things down, and that's really important as well. I
see. So let's get back to just more of your story and where you came from, playing with the London Symphony Orchestra. So you were basically like a kid among adults, right, in that situation?
I was very used to being a kid amongst adults. Yeah. So that was not new to me. I love it. I've always been a little wild woman. So yeah.
Gotcha. And then you started doing professional singing work throughout your teen years. Like, tell me how your career in music started to expand. How did you find or get these opportunities to basically sing with some very like talented individuals?
Yeah, so I really soon after I did my little talent show where I sang, and I was like, oh, this is not so bad. There was a local opportunity in my borough where I live in London, and it was for young people to kind of do their thing, whether it be singing, dancing, playing an instrument or whatever, and join a mentoring program. So I did that age 12. And I absolutely loved it. I met up with them every Saturday and we had mentors and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, Jocelyn Brown's coming in. And I was like, wait, what? And it was just so cool. And so, yeah, a few of us kind of took that opportunity more seriously than others. And then I kind of got more opportunities since there. I met some really, really good fellow old women, children there. They were like really focused on their singing and stuff. And I kind of connected with them and yeah, so I did that from when I was that project. I did that for like 3 or 4 years and met some people that way.
Gotcha. Okay. And so what was that experience like, you know, as you did that for those 3 or 4 years? Like, what were some of the things that you learned from being able to sing backing vocals with Jocelyn?
That you have to love what you're doing, because everyone says you have to work hard and stuff like that. But what I found being around all those other people, and the people that kind of dropped out and didn't get the opportunities and the people that did, was the ones that worked hard because they loved it so much. Like, if your heart's not in it, you're never going to convince someone that it is, and you're not going to put the work in. So it's all going to kind of spiral downwards. So yeah, that was the biggest thing I learned, was that, you know, if you don't love it, then you've got to stop and find something else, because you're never going to excel and get those kind of opportunities if your heart's not in it.
And so, and also you know, working with singing backing vocals for Sarah Brightman, and she's, you know, she's you know, one of the most well-known, like classically trained opera singers. I was watching, you know, in preparation for this, like I didn't know the name, but then when I looked her up on YouTube, I'm like, oh yes, I know that one. This is the song that she was singing with Andrea Bocelli. I'm like, I know that song.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from her, being around her?
I didn't really get much interaction with her, to be honest, but anything that when I did meet her, she was just very she's very ethereal. I found she was very kind of just like, she didn't have too much to say. She was just kind of in her lane doing her thing and very kind, and she was like an angel. She wafted around and was angelic. And I actually, it wasn't much interaction, but you can learn a lot from that, you know, just being a nice person to be around, and just doing your thing. Yeah. Gotcha.
So then eventually you ended up going to university to be trained classically in music, correct? What exactly did you major in?
So it was contemporary music. So I majored in vocal performance, but contemporary. So yeah, no classical training, no arias, nothing like that. It was the training. So the 3-year degree, we just did all different contemporary styles. So it was rock, pop, R&B, country, and all different styles of contemporary singing. Everything except classical, basically. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So then what was the reasoning to go to school for that? Like, did you felt, I'm assuming that you felt like there was something to gain from that experience rather than just, you know, teaching yourself on your own, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it was perfect for me at the time because, again, I wasn't a larger than life character when I was a teenager. I had it inside me, but I was always too nervous, but I was always very academic. Like I did well at school and all that. So it was perfect for me, really. It was still being academic, but being able to express myself and sing and just learn. And it was, I think it's because the respect that I have for the voice, I wanted to know why. I was not satisfied with things like, yeah, just, you know, like do that and then you'll hit a higher note. Like I wanted to know why. That was what it was.
Okay. So where do you think that comes from? Like this desire to actually understand or have like an explanation for the why behind things?
I was always one of those kids that just asked really like awkward questions, like, but why? But why? But why? And I just, I don't know. I think I'm just very inquisitive, and I think that is probably quite a common trait for introverts. I always prefer listening to speaking and learning to proving or whatever. So yeah, I know. I just want to know why about everything. Not just, I mean, singing is the voice is my passion, but about everything. If I've sparked an interest in something, I want to know all there is to know about it. Yeah.
And you feel like it's infinite though. Like you can keep asking these questions, and then it will just lead to like another another why, and it never really ends. So you're almost just like in this position where you're like a lifelong learner when it comes to the art of musicianship.
That's it though. That's life. That's it. We're never going to know everything. We you know, as a child of God, you know, God knows everything, and we can learn as much as we can from that kind of divine source. But that's why we're here, to learn and grow and stay humble, but also do your best. Yeah.
So how long did you study in university, and when did you finish up and then just move into essentially like adult life? So I did 2 years, then I had a year out. I spent, was an X Factor, but that's a dodgy, that is no. And then I moved to America to work with an indie label and a producer. And then I came back and finished my degree, and I got my certificate 2019. So I've been adulting for, what year is it? 2 years. You've been adulting for 2 years. Okay. So, and then, adulting, and then 1 year in an unusual situation, which is not a normal adulting situation, which is this pandemic.
Right. Yeah. So 1 year I've been an adult. That's all right. That's not bad.
So wait, you glossed over a quick second that you tried out for X Factor in England?
Oh, Yes. Well, so it wasn't something I was that bothered about, really. It was like a childhood dream, but then I was like, yeah, whatever, X Factor. Because, meeting all the mentors that I've met, it's just like, you don't audition for X Factor, that is not. And I'm like, oh, of course, I would never. But they came around to my uni and scouted me, because that's like, they do. I don't want to divulge too information, because I don't know, I don't want to get shot or anything. But basically, yeah, they scouted me for it. And I went on it, and then I actually got some really valuable lessons from that. And then, from the man himself, Simon, he's like, you don't know yourself yet. And I was like, yeah, I do. But then I cried for a day, and I was like, no, I don't. And then after that, it was very weirdly synchronized. Like, my granddad passed, and he was just like the rock of our family. We loved him so much, and that was really hard. And then a few weeks after that, I went to America and worked with a producer, and just started to learn about being an adult and like being an artist, and like stripping away all the ego things that was holding me down, like excuses I made for myself, and stripping that back. Yeah, that was all in that 1 year.
Gotcha. So when you moved to Los Angeles, I'm making a presumption here that you moved to Los Angeles, but you moved, where did you move in the United States?
Yeah, it was Vermont. It's really random.
Vermont. Why Vermont?
Because the label I was working with, Vermont Pop, is an indie label, and I don't remember exactly how they found me, or someone found, I don't know, but I ended up going there to work with a producer at Vermont Pop Records, and to work on my own song, and to write songs for other people as well. That just happened to be where I was, and it was kind of like an ironic thing, like Vermont Pop, like no one knows Vermont for pop, so I found that cool.
So what was that your first time out of the UK and here in America, or even just abroad in general?
Well, when you live in England, it's so close to things. Like, you can get on the ferry and be in France in an hour. So
yeah, that's true.
I'd been around a bit on holiday, like, but yeah, it was my first. I went on my own, and I was 20, and I was like, oh, I'm so grown up. Like, that was, yeah. But yeah, that was my first. Yeah, that's the first trip that counts, I guess.
Was that a difficult decision to make, or were you just like, all right, let's just do this? Like, were you scared at all of making that move here to the US?
No, for some reason. As a person that was generally fearful about most things in my life, when this came about and they were like, well, you could come here, and I thought, yeah, 100%, I'm just going. Especially because, I lost my granddad and that kind of thing, and I was just like, this is all this. You don't get opportunities like that to turn them down. So it didn't matter how scared I thought I was, I would just go anyway. So yeah, fear didn't come into it. I just went. Yeah, I knew it was going to work out.
Gotcha. And then how long were you there? And then when did you end up returning back to England?
So I was effectively there from October 2017 to May 2018. And then I moved back and continued all my work, but in London, and developed other parts of my work, like my teaching.
Gotcha. Tell me about just your experiences recently, right? Like, you started this YouTube channel not too long ago, basically like a year ago at the time we're recording right now. It's late July here. People who will be listening to this episode will be hearing it a little bit later than that, but we're just coming up like on your 1 year anniversary mark. What was the impetus for you, or the flashpoint that made you, encourage you to start creating stuff on YouTube?
I was just brimming with ideas and concepts about vocal technique and stuff, because I really built up my students at that point. At that point, I taught hundreds and hundreds of students, because I taught theatre groups and all that kind of thing. And I just thought I come up with things because I hadn't had classical training. I come up with things from my own original ideas that I'd worked with my students, things I had not heard before. So I was like, I really want to convey this information and see if it helps other people. And that was why I did it. Yeah.
Okay. So how long had you been thinking about it? Like, had YouTube been something that just like kind of crossed your mind here and there, and you thought like, maybe I should do it? And then, because I know like a lot of creators, they might spend like sometimes years thinking like, I want to do YouTube, and then they never do it. And then eventually they do. And they're like, why didn't I start this sooner?
Yeah. For me, it's fun. I didn't think anything about YouTube at all. I was thinking I might do like, I just wanted to get this information out there. So I was like, well, I might do workshops, blah, blah, blah. But then one of my students, Bradley, said, I've been watching these vocal coach react videos and you'd be really good at them. And I thought, I'd never even heard of a vocal coach react video. So this whole vocal coach thing on YouTube, I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't know anyone else that did it. I didn't watch them, nothing. But then I watched a couple of these videos and I was like, wait, so you watch someone watch a video? Right, like that. And I thought, well, I'm not doing that. So I thought maybe I could put my own spin on it and watch a video and then dissect the performance of every inch of its life. And that's why I eventually decided to do it. So initially, so I got the idea that I was going to do it in June, this time last year, so June 2020, especially because, you know, I didn't have much to do with the old Panny D. So I was initially going to call it Lolli in the Larynx, and then I did a couple of little Lolli in the Larynx episodes, and I was like, this is so lame, I can't do this. It was like this big persona. And then I just came up with the Fairy Voice Mother. I think I was at the beach, and I just thought, thought the Fairy Voice Mother was good. And then I started with my sort of how to sing lower and that kind of thing. And I thought, this is great. You know, I've got 42 subscribers now. All my friends are watching. My students love it. This is brilliant. I was really enjoying it. And then I started doing the Vocal Coach React videos in January. And then, it got bigger. Yeah,
and then it just really started to take off, like at that point. Or like that Bruno Mars Anderson .Paak Silk Sonic video, that probably was that the one that really just kind of like skyrocketed your channel? Because I remember, I think when I found you, you were already pretty big. Like you had, I think, around like 20,000 subscribers. But since then, it's just it seems like it's just, I mean, it seems like it's doubled in that time.
Yeah, it was that one. I don't know why, because I don't even think it was probably, I don't know if it was my best one or not, really. I can't be objective about it, but people liked it, and I think it's because that they love the song so much, and people have said that I sort of helped them understand the song and enjoy it, like more from a technical perspective. So yeah, that was definitely the one that I honestly wouldn't be exaggerating to say it changed my life, because that video, as I've got lesson requests and everything, so. Like, because of that video, I now have like a sustainable career, basically, with that. So yeah, that wouldn't be dramatic to say that.
Yeah, that's something I want to touch on with you a little bit more in a moment. But I'm also curious about just what expectations that you had going into YouTube. You know, as you mentioned, like we were like not in the middle, but at the onset of this pandemic that, you know, has obviously swept the entire world. When you started your YouTube channel, it seems like, if I had to make a guess, that you went into this with like very few expectations, not thinking like, hey, I'm going to get like you probably didn't imagine that you would have like 40,000 subscribers at this point, like almost a year into it, right? It was just more like, let's just try this out, and you know, there's opportunity here to see if there's ways to connect with people.
Absolutely, yeah. I thought it'd be nice a year later if I had 100. That'd be nice. That was like my little goal. My expectation was it's a nice creative combined with technical outlet for me to share my knowledge and help people. And when I say help people, I didn't expect random people to even find them, because I post videos on YouTube before as like a 16-year-old, like, hi, this is my cover, and like no one watches them, like your aunt watches them and that kind of thing. And that's what I thought this would be like. I would send it to my family and my students to help them practice, and it was that for a while. And yes, and that was my expectation. And as soon as I started posting them, I thought, brilliant, I've met my expectation, because that's all I wanted it for. So yeah.
So the first few months, like you said before, is in January you really started doing a lot of these like reaction videos. But like before then, as far as like content that you were coming up with, you were doing like I did the deep dive back into your channel, and you were doing like a lot more like tutorials, actual teaching type of stuff, right? Yes. Like targeting all of that. How did you, like, in terms of like coming up with ideas early on for your channel, like what did that process look like for you?
That was the funnest thing, like, and it still is. So I have a big note sheet on my phone, and then I'll work on, I'll do a lesson with someone, and at the beginning of every lesson I say, what do you want to work on? And he would have said low voice. And so I think, right, do that, try that. And then the things that work, I'd write down the exercises and then compile it into a list and think, oh, I'll do 5 steps to sing lower. And just things that I know has really, really helped my students. I would just, and I'd come up with things on walks and stuff. Oh, that'd be nice. And I think, what would I want to know as a sort of young, untrained singer, which I was? What would I want to see? Like, and that's how I come up with things.
And so as your channel has grown, like you mentioned, you've been able to, reach a bunch of people and even connect with new students and whatnot. Those are, would you say that the positives at this point, like, outweigh any negatives that you've experienced so far?
Definitely. Yeah, especially because, like, as I said, I didn't even understand about the whole reaction video genre. I just was like, why do people want to watch this? But then as I started getting into it, I realized that reaction videos are just brilliant because it's so relatable. Like, anyone, if you enjoy the song, you can watch that and enjoy a critique of the song, and I can teach the technique I wanted to teach that way. So I'm still doing what I wanted to do, teaching vocal technique, but in a much more approachable, kind of accessible, more accessible way. So,
yeah, exactly. I think that's what's cool about it is, like, a lot of people will go to these reaction videos and it'll be people who people reacting may not have any knowledge or like expertise to what they're reacting to. They're just like offering a reaction, right? Whereas the videos that you're making where you're reacting to this, like, you have actual knowledge and you're able to like pepper in that knowledge about singing and about music that really adds like some fullness, I think, to your content. At least that's for me. I'm like, oh wow, like I said, really, like I learned something from like watching your videos, whereas I think a lot of other reaction videos are just like more like for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, well, I'm very honoured because that's exactly why I do it. So if you've watched it and learned something, I've done my job.
I want to know also about like challenges when it comes to creating content, because this is work, right? Like, this is not just all fun and games. Even though you're enjoying the process of it, it's exciting for you, there's still a lot of thought and hard work that goes into this. So what are some of the challenges that you would say you're facing right now as like still early on as in your career, so to speak, creating content on YouTube?
There's a lot more challenges than I expected, a lot more. The biggest thing is time. I first started uploading videos and because I really had low expectations, I could do one a week and that was all right, because I didn't really have this kind of level of perfectionism that I've unfortunately developed more recently. And so one a week was fine. I would edit it, and the editing would take me about 5 hours, and then I'd upload it, and I could do one a week, and that was fine. But then as I did it, and then people were expecting that once a week, and then I just couldn't keep up with it, especially as I started teaching more. I got more students in, and I also wanted to keep working on my own music. I physically did not have the time. So Monday was the day that I set aside to do my filming, and because so I would film how I do them is I film the reaction and then I watch it again to pick up all the extra nuances. So the reaction is genuine, and then I'll slot in with the little piece of information. And that takes the filming process takes about 2.5 hours. And then I have to upload it. And then the editing now, it takes me about 8 to 10 hours per video. That's probably because I don't know what I'm doing, because I use iMovie.
Okay.
Yeah, so it takes over 12 hours to do one video, and obviously editing, especially if you're not very good at it, you make mistakes, and then you concentrate, and you're like, oh, I've got a headache, and then you come back to it, and it takes me a full entire week basically to do one video the way that I do it. And so and then I feel like I'm letting people down when it's been 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, and I haven't seen a video, and so I find myself sometimes carrying around this subconscious guilt that I can't provide something I set out to provide just because I literally don't have the time. And so that is a really a challenge, not being able to keep up with the consistency that people expect, especially as some people that do what I do, they upload like 2-3 a week, and I'm just like, how? So and I've never felt like I could delegate because the editing is really part of the videos. It like the things that I do in the video, and I'm like, I don't know how I could delegate that, because that's part of what me as the channel person is. So it's been very hard thinking about things that I can delegate to keep the frequency up. That is the biggest challenge, especially actually as well, because I don't actually make hardly any money out of the videos, because the content that I use is copywritten. So a lot of people say, oh, you could do this full time, you know, you've got loads of views. It's like I don't get hardly any money from this. Definitely nowhere near enough to like eat, let alone also have a roof. So the time is the biggest one. There's a lot of things there that you mentioned. Like there's just misconceptions too about like YouTube, right? Like and being a content creator. I think like your audience, there are a lot of people who watch videos on YouTube and they think like, oh, you now have like 40,000 subscribers, you must be like making bank, and it's like probably not. And there's so many like nuances too in terms of like the niche that you pick that can kind of dictate whether you make money or not. Like it's not so much audience size, but like more or less like what kind of niche are you, right? Like you are the second of quite a few, actually. I've got quite a few people lined up for this season of the Videocraft show who are also based in the UK, but I spoke to one woman she's in Scotland. And she has 80,000 subscribers, but she's got a great niche. She's a personal finance vlogger. So personal finance, anything with money, like advertisers are going to be like, let's spend on that, because this is an audience that is interested in money. And so the advertising rates like on AdSense are just going to be much higher versus like your content, right? Where, there's, like you said, there's copywritten material, like the artists, the musicians whose songs you're reacting to, they have to get their they have to get their royalties out of like every view that the video makes. But at the same time, like, in terms of delegation, like, are there things that you're thinking about delegating? Maybe like, what about possibly starting with the delegation of just like uploading and like channel management, right? Like getting actually having to like upload the videos and then set up like the descriptions and the titles and whatnot for all of your videos. Yeah, because that's something that I am just not even considered. Like, I don't know anything, and unfortunately I haven't really gone out of my way to look at that. Like, I don't even understand the whole AdSense thing. Like, I mean, I'll say now, I have not earned a single penny off the video I made, the Bruno Mars one, that had like 860,000 views, I think, or something, and I've not earned anything from it. So then I think, I could delegate and make this kind of really like description-y or whatever you say. I don't even understand any of this stuff. But then I think, where's this money going to come from? Because I'm not even making that much money from the channels. Do you know what I mean? So I think if there was anything that I could delegate, I think it would maybe be sort of, someone to do more administrative side of things, because it takes me like 20 minutes to type an email. I make myself sound like the worst technophobe. I did actually used to work at Apple as well, but I don't. Did? Yeah, I did, but so that would be something I would maybe consider delegating if I managed to start earning money from my YouTube channel. But at least the thing for you right now is that you're getting inbound for your vocal coaching business, essentially, like training people and teaching people. How much inbound would you be comfortable talking about that? Has it gotten to a point where it's like, oh my gosh, I need to have like a wait list, or is it like a steady, good, solid amount of people that is manageable for you as like a solopreneur at this point? Yes, I do have a wait list, which is mad. It's crazy. Ever since I started with reaction videos, I say it was about like March, the Bruno Mars one. Like a week after that, I it was around 40 requests for lessons that come in for the form on my website, and I was like, I can't physically teach all those. So then my mind is cast onto things like workshops, teaching lots of people at the same time. So I've been developing workshops and other ways to do remote learning with me. Like I do a service called On Demand, where people can send me a clip of them singing, and I will record them a 30-minute voice lesson and break down their techniques and tell them how to sing better. And that's something that's been a little bit more scalable for me, because that doesn't take me as long, and I can do it at midnight if I want to. And so that is where YouTube has been great for my business and stuff like that. It is because it's just been a great way to advertise. So I feel like that's the biggest thing I'm getting out of it, rather than them giving me something directly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's really the key to this, like in terms of earning some sort of livable wage or any kind of wage from like creating content on any platform, is like, how can you, it's nice. It's like a nice to have to be able to get money from like AdSense. But if it's like your sole way of making money, then you're in a very fragile position. Whereas like if with you, like you're able to like offer a service that you can interact, you can have the exchange of money like directly with customers versus like having that middleman involved, which is like the platform itself.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of money as well, I've always been very spiritual. I've never worried about money. I never think, I better have this amount of money. I'm not interested in money at all. I just want to, because I don't need it. From my perspective, I don't need anything at all. I just want to be able to do what I enjoy doing and not literally die. So I'm not interested in money. As long as I've got enough to keep going, it's fine. And because I have that attitude, I don't have that kind of scarcity attitude of money. I've got to get as much as I can. It just comes, like I set up this buy me a coffee thing, and people were like, I think it was like a week after I set it up, some person just gave me £45, which is like, I don't know, what is that? $60
it's like $60, $70 US dollars, I think.
Like, oh my God, like I just can't believe people would do that. But they do, like people do want to support content that they enjoy, and the people that can't because they don't have the money themselves, that's fine. It really just kind of swings on roundabouts, and you'll get yours kind of thing. You'll be able to eat, but you've got to just stay very humble, and because that's what I've done, and just not expect anything. And in it, God works in mysterious ways in my experience.
Yeah. So aside from doing the vocal lessons, like are you doing anything else as far as like work? I mean, I know that you're writing songs and you're producing songs as well, yes. But like what is like the gamut of like your work look like at this point in terms of like the inbound that you're getting for vocal coaching on YouTube versus like everything else that you're doing? Yeah,
so it's 50-50. I divide my time quite equally now, fortunately, between coaching lessons, creating YouTube content, and then vocal producing, so which is my other job, writing songs for artists, including me, and doing the vocal production, which means sort of plan out all the harmonies, and that kind of thing. So that's what, and I don't really have specific times where things are, on Monday I do this, or Tuesday, it's not too much like that, but it's just, that's how my time is divided over a week. Yeah. And that's my sources of income.
And so you mentioned a moment ago about like having like bouts with perfectionism, and I know also when we exchanged emails that you were very like transparent and honest about like having to deal with bouts with depression and anxiety. We've talked a little bit about that, but in terms of how you're able to cope with these moments, do you have any like practices or like rituals or anything that you do to kind of like ground yourself to like quiet the incessant chatter of your mind that's being critical of the things that you're doing?
Yeah. So I describe it as everyone is kind of in some kind of spiral. You have the positive spiral, which starts with a single good thought or a smile, and then that can spiral upwards. And if you begin a downward spiral with something's gone wrong, another thing goes wrong, another thing goes right, and you can let either of those things take over. So as soon as I notice that I'm starting to get frustrated, like I've come in here to shoot a video and it's not gone right, you know, I dropped a tea on myself, or my computer's died in the middle of a video, and at that point I could get very frustrated and upset, or I could just smile and then do my positive spiral that way. So it's ever since I've found my spirituality and things like chakras and that kind of thing, I've managed to rely on my sort of inner self to bring me out of it. And just honestly, like some people like running or like whatever, I just lay on the floor because it just lets me think about my inner self a little bit more and just rely on my energy centers and remind myself that literally nothing matters. I am made of the same things as, you know, this tea towel and my plants, and none of it matters. So yeah. It's about, I find it's just like trying to find this balance between like, you know, you don't want to become totally like nihilistic and like, oh, who cares about anything? Like all of this doesn't matter at all. And then you have like no motivation to try and like be creative or anything like that. But then it's also like not getting overwhelmed by that other side that is just like, I want to do a good job. Right. And it's so hard because you're just going back and forth in between the two. Exactly. That's why I think having some sort of, spirituality has been literally my saving grace, because I can lay on the floor for sort of 10 minutes and 15 minutes and I think, what do I really want to do now? Or actually now I love to sing, or I love to write, or I love to make these videos, so I'm going to go and do that once I've calmed myself down. And so I think as long as you have that, as long as you can ask yourself those questions, what do I really want to do? No one wants to just lay on the floor and do nothing all the time and look at social media. It's an easy way out, but no one truly wants that. So I think that's just why putting everything away and just being with yourself, you just get ideas. And
when you lie on the floor, you're just lying flat on the ground on your back, basically.
Yeah,
and just
on the floor.
It's almost like meditating, like while lying down, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like lying down meditation.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I do something similar as well. I wake up in the mornings and I'll like lie down and, you know, in my bed and just, you know, meditate. And then kind of just let the thoughts like run through. And then you kind of realize that they're not, it teaches you to just be like, oh, don't attach so much to these things. They're just kind of running and passing, you know, they're not actually real yet. You can make them real, but that's the choice that you can make.
Yes, you've got to follow your bliss. You know, if you're forcing something too hard, like, but this is in my schedule, I've got to do this video, I've got to edit it by this date. If you force that, things are going to start to go wrong. And then you think, well, what do I really want to do right now? Not what is the easiest thing to do. Obviously, the easiest thing is to do absolutely nothing. But what do I want to do? And yeah, that's the difference.
Exactly. So did you ever at any point like see yourself like as entrepreneurial, or do you even see yourself in that way these days? Like with, you know, running your vocal coaching business, like, are you evolving into a business person? Was that something that you had ever crossed your mind is in terms of like the work that you're doing or the career path that you took?
Not at all. I don't see myself as a businesswoman at all. All I want to do is have enough money to live and enjoy myself. Like in terms of, and when I say enjoy myself, that is sing and teach and that kind of thing. So no, I don't see myself as entrepreneur at all. I always tell people I'm a terrible businesswoman because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't capitalize on things, but I always get by. So yeah. Yeah.
and then you know, started like having some of these other platforms now where you can kind of try and earn some extra income. You know, you mentioned like Buy Me a Coffee is something that you signed up for. You have a Patreon too, right?
Yeah, I do. And people, God bless people, they you know, give me little bits of money and stuff to carry on doing. But I'm trying to think of things to give to them, and I messaged my patrons, and I'm like, "What do you want? You know, I want to service you and stuff, but I don't have that kind of business mindset where I think, oh, I could get them to sort of give you this amount of money if I provided this service and stuff." So that's something maybe that I need to work on. I don't know.
Yeah. So, but that's that's the best place to start, is to actually like ask your customers, ask them, you know what, here, because I'm a marketer, right? Like this is my job here at Video Husky actually is like, I run marketing at Video Husky. I do this podcast. It's actually part of our marketing strategy for anybody who has been listening to this podcast for a while. It's content marketing. We're not going to shy away from that. We're talking to creators. We're learning from them, and creators are interested from learning from other creators, video creators specifically. And, if there's lessons they can learn and they find out, oh, wait, they have a video editing service, like there's opportunity there. But I think like, just asking like about pain points, like what's your problem? Like, what is your biggest problem? Like when it comes to singing, like what are your challenges and whatnot? And then figuring out if there are ways to, that you can help alleviate some of those stresses. There might be some opportunity there in terms of like the perks that you could give people on Patreon and other platforms. Yeah.
I don't know. What was that? I don't think I understood. What was that? Sorry.
Just thinking in terms of like being a problem solver, like what are the problems, rather than like asking them like, what do you want? Asking them like, what are like your day-to-day problems when it comes to singing or music or something like that. Something along those lines maybe might give you some inspiration. That's just like my, me just like talking out of my ass here.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I think a lot of the people that watch my videos, because I react to all different songs, and so a lot of it is, I don't know what kind of person. I couldn't give you a stereotypical customer or subscriber of mine, because some of them are singers, some of them really enjoy music, some of them just liked one of the songs and graciously decided to subscribe to my channel because of that. Some people said they subscribe because they like the shirts that I wear. Like, so I don't know what these people want, because they're all really different. Like, you would think that vocal coaching is a real kind of specific niche. Yeah. And the initial videos I did where it was just lessons were, but now that it's not at all. It's just anyone that enjoys a song that I've reacted to, like those are also subscribers. So yeah.
well definitely like narrowing down to the people who are actually like paying you things, like those are the people who I think, like in terms of like asking what their problems are, what their pain points are, what their challenges are. Those are the people that you would want to, like, if I were in your position, that I would be curious more about, because those are the people who are like, I'm actually willing to like give you money for this. Whereas like, of course there's, like you said, you have almost like 1 million views on that Silk Sonic video. Large majority of those 1 million people were not willing to pay you for something. Course. But like, just for that small amount of people who are willing to pay you for something, maybe there's something that you could create for them. I don't know. Like, it's so big these days to like create online courses and whatnot. And maybe that's something that you could do as well, because that's also like, it's more scalable, right? Because you teach the lessons once and then record it and then, distribute it to those people. I don't know. That might be especially with like the demand that you're getting. Like, maybe there's some people, who would get a lot of value out of that. And it might be more affordable for them relative to doing the vocal lessons with you. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, Lolli.
That's good. That's good. I've been thinking about a vocal course. I'm definitely not going to do like here's my set of videos, it's $100, like buy this. But I am planning something. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't like jinxing things. But there's something that I'm thinking might work. It's going to take me a while, but yeah, I'll let you know if I ever do that. A scalable teaching solution where I don't leave the person.
Yeah. In terms of, what else too, I'm wondering if you're willing to chat about this, great. If not, like, then we can bypass this. But in terms of like pricing to like your services, do you find that to be a challenge? Is that tough for you to figure out, like, okay, how much do I actually like charge for, my lessons that I'm giving to people? Yeah,
it is hard. I eventually decided my price, which is £70 an hour, which I'm not sure what that is in, not an hour, it's a 50-minute lesson, based on things such as the amount of time that I've spent knowing what I know, what that has kind of cost me. And I know that my sessions are a lot cheaper than how I've attained my knowledge, like through going to university and stuff. That was a lot more than like, you know, a set of 8 lessons with me, because once you have the lessons, like if you have enough kind of initiative and practice and, you know, you're get up and go kind of person, you don't need to have lessons with me every week forever. Like you can just get as much as you can out of me, you know, for 8 sessions or whatever, and be done and take that and run with it. There is people I've been working with sort of 3 years, and I sort of work with them much more coach style, like keeping them on top of their practice, making sure that they're growing and expanding, and that's wonderful. But you don't actually have to have that, and that's why I feel comfortable with my price, because I do believe in the value of the service that I give. So yeah, that's
great to hear. And honestly, that's a good amount of money for an hourly rate, right? Like I think that is. I always find that it's a challenge, especially I've been in a position before where I was like, or I freelanced a lot too, and you're always kind of like, are they, you know, you're kind of wondering like, will someone actually pay me that amount? And that can be like the tough thing, is like, you know, asking, you know, what you're actually worth. And so that's good to hear that you have like a good idea of it yourself relative to like the market, right? Like relative to like, you know, what you could be paying for similar kinds of expertise elsewhere, and what is fair for you, because you also have to cover like your, you know, it's not just like that hour that you're covering, right? Like you're also covering like the other work that you're doing to like keep your business running.
Exactly. Like that, you know, helps me fund the ability for me to do YouTube videos. And because I used to teach like 9 lessons a day and stuff, and I've scaled that back a lot. That's why I have a waiting list, because I want to make sure that I'm in good form so I can give a good quality session and things like that, you know. So that's how I know it's valuable. And another thing, I think why I feel comfortable charging what I charge is because I won't take it personally or get upset if I quote that price and they say no, because I'm not desperate for I'm not because I'm rich. I think my family is very working class. I don't have a lot of money, but I also don't need it or want it. I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, knock the price down so I get more. Like, I'm not interested in more. I just want to do a good job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably one of the in terms of like even just finding a job, right? Like if you were somebody who was like job hunting or whatnot, like being in that position where you can like walk away gives you actually like a lot more leverage in negotiations to know that, hey, I actually could, you know, and it's not to be, like you said, it's not to be like mean to people or anything like that. It's just, you know what you're worth, and there, you know that there are, you know, other opportunities out there for someone to pay you what you're worth, rather than like you know, lowering your price just to like acquire a customer.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I know that I can still provide a service for free for people. If they look at my videos, they can still learn about vocal technique. So it's not like I've abandoned people. And again, I'm working on new ways as well that I can scale teaching for a cheaper thing, so I can be in lots of places at the same time. And so I'm working on that as well, because I want it to be affordable. I really do. So
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Lolli, this was a fun conversation that we had. We had some technical issues, but I think we overcame them quite well. And I'm really excited to see, you know, what you do moving forward. I mean, you're really just getting started here, and you've already got like great ground on your channel and like building this following. So I'm excited to see what you do in the future. And, you know, we'll probably have to touch base again and have another conversation of where your business and your YouTube channel is, maybe at some point in the future.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you again to Lolli Wren, aka the Fairy Voice Mother, for joining me on this episode. And just a reminder to everybody, if you would like to go and check out her videos, visit the Fairy Voice Mother. Just search for her on Google. Type it up on the YouTube search bar, the Fairy Voice Mother, and you will find her out there on the YouTube atmosphere, or the YouTube sphere. YouTube atmosphere, what is that? YouTube sphere, the YouTubiverse, the YouTubular tubiverse. Okay, I should stop now. Let's just continue. Yes, thank you again to Lolli Wren for joining me on this episode of the Videocraft Show. We're going to remind everybody, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, text messaged it, or slide through someone's DMs and say, hey, this is something you might want to listen to. Maybe you want to learn how to sing. Maybe you want to improve your vocal singing, your vocal training. Anyways, just share the content with anybody you might think, share the content with anybody that would probably find it valuable. Secondly, get a copy of our free script template. You can do so at videocraftshow.com, or if you're watching the video here on YouTube, just scroll down to the description below and click the link to join our email list. That's all you have to do, actually. There's a form on videocraftshow.com that allows you to sign up to our email list, and you will get the scripting template, which will be delivered straight to your inbox right after you sign up, and you'll constantly get updates from when we release new episodes of the podcast too. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We're always trying to make the show better, and we'd like to hear from you, and we appreciate comments too. If you want to leave us a comment, leave a comment down below. Tell us that you enjoyed this episode, or tell me that, hey man, you should do a better job with interviewing people. You need to do a little more preparation. Finally, I want to go ahead and thank my team for helping me to produce the show. Thank you to Nikki Vicente as well as Ingrid Saraiba for their dedication and their work on editing and producing this podcast. Also got to shout out Paulo Lopez for handling all things graphics. If you would like your videos edited to look just like this, you like the quality of this content, then make sure to visit videohusky.com to learn more. We will go ahead and wrap up, and we'll see you next week on another episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky.